The message came through at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. We need distance from you. Please stop contacting us completely. My family. My own blood. 16 words that felt like a door slamming in my face. I was standing in my apartment when I read it, this small, neat space I'd worked so hard to keep stable. The kind of place where everything has its spot, where the bills are color-coded in a drawer that sticks when it's humid. And in that moment, staring at my phone, something inside me didn't break. It clicked into place. I'm Kiara Reed. I'm 31 years old, and I've spent most of my adult life being the person everyone in my family calls when they need money. Not advice. Not company. Money. It wasn't always obvious. It started small, covering groceries here, a phone bill there. My mother would sigh near the kitchen sink, towel in hand, leaving sentences unfinished until I offered to help. My father would lecture me about loyalty and duty, his voice getting tight whenever a bill was floating in the background. And my sister Savannah. She'd just call me banker girl with this half-smile that made it sound like a joke until she needed a security deposit or couldn't make her car payment. Every single time I tried to say no, the chorus would start. Don't be dramatic. You know she can't do it alone. You're the responsible one. Even the extended family played along. Our group chat was constant, photos, memes, complaints. But the second money came up, every voice sharpened. Suddenly everyone had an opinion about what I should do, what I owed, how I shouldn't make things awkward. It never mattered that they didn't know my budget, that I was tying myself into knots each month just to keep everyone afloat, that I'd canceled vacations, pushed back car repairs, eaten the same cheap meals for weeks, all so they could live comfortably. In all that noise, there was one person who never asked me for anything. My Uncle Wade. He runs a small moving service across town, the kind of work that gives you strong hands and a quiet understanding of people. He never hinted. Never pushed. He just watched. I didn't realize how important that would become until everything fell apart. For years, I told myself this was normal. Every family has roles, right? Mine just happened to make me the bank. I told myself it wasn't personal. But every time I opened my banking app, every time I watched my own plans shrink so theirs could grow, something small inside me tightened. And then came that text message. The one that felt less like words and more like a verdict. The days before that message were strange. Small shifts. Little stings. Moments that should have rolled off me but instead settled under my skin like grit. It started with Savannah, the way it usually did. She showed up at my parents' place wearing a brand new coat, tag still creased into the fabric, talking about this safer apartment she was eyeing across the city. She didn't look at me when she said it. She didn't have to. You'll cover the deposit, right? Her voice was casual. Like ordering takeout. I said no. Not loudly. Not angrily. Just a steady no I'd practiced in my bathroom mirror. My mother froze with a dish in her hand. My father sucked in this slow, disappointed breath. That was all it took. The room shifted. The air changed. And suddenly I was the selfish one again. Savannah didn't even flinch. Come on, banker girl, she said, smiling. It's not that deep. But it was deep. It had always been deep. I'd just been too busy keeping everyone else above water to notice I was drowning. I left early that night. Sat in my car with the heater ticking, wondering why a simple boundary felt like a crime. I remember gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white, trying to talk myself out of the anger building in my chest. But the real blow came 2 days later. My office phone rang. I answered with my work voice, calm, clipped, professional, only to hear my parents' landlord cheerfully confirming the renewal of their automatic deposit agreement. My deposit agreement. He thanked me for reversing a late fee. A late fee I didn't even know existed. Then he kept talking, mentioning how my parents had given him my work email and my schedule so he could reach me at a good time. I remember my coworker Nicole glancing over, probably wondering why I'd gone so still. I couldn't even form words. Just nodded into the phone like an idiot while this stranger thanked me for money I hadn't known I'd spent. I stared at the wall. At the cheap canvas art blurring as heat crawled up my neck. They hadn't just used my money. They'd opened the door into my professional life. Handed out my personal information like party favors. Privacy wasn't something I'd assumed I had to guard from my own family. But suddenly, I wasn't sure I had any at all. When I hung up, Nicole asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine. That word I'd been using my whole life to cover up things that were anything but fine. That evening, I drove straight to their apartment. The hallway smelled like cleaning solution and leftover takeout. I sat them down, my parents on the sagging couch I'd bought, Savannah leaning in the doorway, and said the words I'd swallowed for years. I deserve to know what I'm paying for. My mother's face hardened. We feel attacked. My father crossed his arms. Take that tone with your coworkers, not with us. Savannah laughed from the hall. Should we tip you now or later? It wasn't a fight. It wasn't even loud. It was worse, casual cruelty delivered with the ease of muscle memory. Like they'd been practicing these lines for years, waiting for me to finally break pattern. I left without finishing my sentence. Drove home with tears I refused to let fall, because crying would mean admitting how much it hurt, how much they'd trained me to accept less than I deserved. The next afternoon, the group chat notification appeared. We need distance from you. Please stop contacting us completely. Something in me didn't break. It clicked into place permanently. The minutes after that text felt suspended. Like the air thickened just to keep me still long enough to understand what had happened. My family didn't ask for space. They declared an exile. No discussion. No confusion. A verdict. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the message until my screen dimmed. No anger. Just this cold, settling clarity I'd never felt before. If this was the distance they wanted, I could honor it. Fully. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Uncle Wade. He never called unless there was a reason. I'm at your parents' place, he said. His voice was steady. Careful. They asked me to help pack. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. Pack what? Everything. Clothes. Dishes. Photos. They're moving out. I closed my eyes. Of course they were. They weren't just cutting contact. They were physically uprooting themselves. Disappearing. Leaving me behind like a bill they didn't want anymore. Wade hesitated. I'll make sure anything with your name on it gets returned. Don't worry. He didn't take sides. He just dealt in truth. And that truth, him standing in their living room, boxing up their lives, hit harder than the text itself. Where are they even going? I asked. They didn't say. Just that they needed a fresh start. A fresh start. Like I was the problem they needed to escape from. After the call, I opened the drawer of color-coded receipts I'd kept for years. Rent. Utilities. Transportation. Medical bills. Subscriptions. Groceries. All the invisible threads I'd used to stitch their lives together, month after month. I told myself I kept the records for my own sanity. For tax purposes. For organization. But in that moment, they felt like a map. A record of every place I'd abandoned myself to keep them afloat. I spread the receipts across the floor. Green for housing. Yellow for utilities. Blue for transportation. Red for medical. Purple for everything miscellaneous they never remembered I paid. The categories curled at the edges like they were tired too. I sat there on the hardwood, knees pulled in, and for the first time let myself see it clearly. Really see it. The pattern I'd been too close to recognize. This wasn't support. This wasn't love. This was dependence disguised as duty. And I had become the infrastructure holding up a house that never had room for me. I picked up a receipt from 3 years ago. My mother's dental work. $800 I charged to a credit card I was still paying off. She'd promised to pay me back in installments. Never did. When I'd mentioned it months later, she'd acted like I was being petty for remembering. Another receipt. Savannah's car insurance. 6 months of payments because she was between jobs. She got a new job 2 weeks into me covering it. Never offered to take it back over. The thought didn't break me. It freed me. That night, Jasper came over. He's been my partner for 3 years, the kind of person who doesn't knock loudly, just taps once and lets himself in when he knows something's wrong. They texted you, he said softly. Not a question. He could read it on my face. I slid the phone to him. He scanned the message, jaw tense but eyes soft. You don't deserve this. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I just exhaled like someone finally loosened a strap around my chest. I'm done, I said. Jasper sat beside me on the floor, among the piles of receipts. Then let's start with one thing. Show me what you've been carrying. I handed him the first stack, green, housing. He looked through them slowly, like flipping pages in a story that finally explained the ending. He didn't say much at first. Just held my hand while I talked. Told him about the years of guilt trips, the constant demands, the way they'd made me feel like wanting anything for myself was selfish. How I'd learned to make myself smaller so they could take up more space. They made you believe your value was in your wallet, he said quietly. That's not family. That's exploitation. Hearing someone else say it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. I keep thinking I should feel worse, I admitted. Like I should be devastated. But I just feel tired. You've been devastated for years, Jasper said. You're just finally admitting it. The next morning, I walked into Dr. Foster's office and told her everything. The text. The packing. The years of financial control masked as family obligation. She listened without interrupting. Nodded in the right places. And finally said, Kiara, ending a financial entanglement isn't abandonment. It's self-preservation. That sentence was the permission I didn't know I'd been waiting for. They're going to make you feel guilty, she continued. They're going to tell you you're cruel, that you're breaking up the family. But what you're actually doing is refusing to participate in a dynamic that was hurting you. By the time I left her office, my mind was steady. My hands weren't shaking. I knew exactly what needed to happen next. I didn't send anything that night. I slept with my phone on silent, face down, the way you do when you're finally done letting it run your life. But the next morning when I turned it over, the group chat was a storm. Missed messages stacked like fallen dominoes. Savannah had started it. Of course she had. Where are you? Why aren't you answering? Mom, you're being dramatic again. Then, fine, we'll do everything without you. I stared at those words. The irony was almost funny. They told me to stop contacting them, and now they were mad I wasn't responding fast enough. I scrolled back to the original message. We need distance from you. Please stop contacting us completely. It still felt unreal. Clean and sharp, like a paper cut. But now I had something they didn't. Clarity. I walked to my kitchen table. Laid out the color-coded stacks from the night before. And snapped photos. One for each category. Housing. Utilities. Medical. Transportation. Subscriptions. Miscellaneous. 7 years of being the family's silent foundation. My fingers didn't shake. They used to. They didn't now. I opened the family group chat. My message arrived as a single block of quiet precision. I'm honoring your request for distance. Here is a summary of the payments I've been making on your behalf. All of these will end on the dates circled. Please transfer the leases and accounts into your own names within the next 30 days. I attached the photos. One by one. Send. 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 And then I added the line I knew would finally make them stop pretending they didn't understand what I contributed. Of course, I'll cancel my direct deposits first thing. For 2 minutes, silence. I imagined their screens lighting up. Their eyes darting across numbers, dates, totals they had never once bothered to ask about. The reality of what they'd been taking finally staring them in the face. Then the panic began. Mom, Kiara. What is this supposed to mean? Dad, money is not the same as family. Don't weaponize it. The hypocrisy of that statement hit me like a slap. Money wasn't family when I wanted boundaries, but it was family obligation when they needed rent paid. Savannah, you're sick. You did this to humiliate us. Aunt Linda chimed in. Then a cousin. Then the cousin's spouse. Little gray typing dots swarmed the screen like gnats. Mom again, we meant distance from your attitude, not from you. I typed back, your message said stop contacting you completely. I'm honoring it. Dad sent a long paragraph. No punctuation. All fury. After everything we did for you growing up, this is the thanks we get. We trusted you with our bills because we thought you understood family better than this. I didn't bother responding to the guilt trip. I'd heard it for years in 100 variations. The after everything we did for you line was particularly rich coming from parents who'd done the bare minimum and then held it over my head like a debt I could never repay. Savannah switched tactics. I can't afford to move right now. I'll be in a dangerous area. Are you happy if something happens to me? I stared at the message. Breath steady. Emotional blackmail. Their favorite tool. Make it about safety, about danger, about anything except the real issue, that they'd never bothered to build lives they could sustain without using me as a crutch. I hope you stay safe, I wrote. But I'm not responsible for your lifestyle. Silence. Then Mom called. Then Dad. Then Savannah. Call after call. Each one ringing out on my screen until I hit Do Not Disturb. They wanted a reaction. I wasn't giving them one. An hour later, a new message appeared. Not in the group chat, but privately. Wade, I'm dropping off a few boxes tonight. Stuff that belongs to you. They didn't open them. I paused. Belongs to me. When he arrived that evening, he stood in my doorway holding 3 neatly stacked boxes. His jacket dusty from moving furniture. They tried to rush me, he said. Told me not to bother with anything that wasn't theirs. But I saw your name on a few things. He set the boxes down gently. Inside, unopened kitchen towels. A blender still in its packaging. A router they'd never installed. Things I'd bought for them. Tiny attempts to make their lives easier. Pushed aside. Forgotten. Still taped shut. Wade watched me take it in. You did a lot more for them than they ever admitted. Don't let them twist this. I felt something twist in my chest anyway. Grief, I think. Not for losing them, but for finally seeing the truth without the filter of obligation. You knew, didn't you? I asked him. How bad it was. He nodded slowly. I've watched them use you for years. Every family gathering, every holiday, they'd mention what you'd paid for like it was nothing. Like you owed it to them. He paused. I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. It wouldn't have mattered, I said. I wasn't ready to hear it. Maybe not, he agreed. But you're ready now. That's what counts. After he left, I opened one of the boxes. Found a framed photo of me at my college graduation. I was smiling in the picture, holding my diploma. My parents stood on either side of me, but they weren't looking at the camera. They were looking at each other, mid-conversation about something else entirely. I'd never noticed that before. When Wade left, the group chat exploded again. Mom, how could you let Wade see our private business? Dad, we will never forgive you for embarrassing us like this. Savannah, I hope you're proud. You ruined everything. I typed nothing. I placed my phone on the counter and poured myself a glass of water instead. Drank it slowly. Deliberately. Quietly. 10 minutes passed before the messages changed tone. Anger to pleading. Just as predictable as tides. Mom, please don't do this. Your father isn't sleeping. Dad, I worked my whole life. You owe me respect. Savannah, if you stop paying the phone plan, how am I supposed to call work or get help? I responded only once, I'm not discussing money anymore. Another pause. Then the long-held family pattern cracked open in front of me like an egg dropped on tile. Savannah, again, I just don't understand why you're so cold now. I answered, you told me not to contact you. I'm simply doing what you asked. This time, no one replied. The quiet stretched long enough for me to hear the hum of my refrigerator. The soft thud of footsteps from the apartment above mine. Real sounds. Present sounds. My own life resurfacing. But the peace didn't last long. At midnight, the group chat lit up again. Extended family joining now. Aunt Linda, we never expected this from you, Kiara. Cousin Tyler, this is extreme. You could have handled it better. Another cousin, family sacrifices for each other. Why can't you? The thing about extended family is they only see the surface. They show up for holidays, hear the sanitized version of events, and think they understand the whole story. They didn't know about the late-night panic attacks when I couldn't make my own rent because I'd covered theirs. They didn't know about the credit card debt I'd hidden so well. They didn't know I'd worked through flu and migraines because I couldn't afford to miss a paycheck. I didn't respond. I uploaded a simple document instead. Budget templates. Renters aid resources. Contact numbers for utility providers. General tools to help them stand on their own feet. At the bottom, I wrote, you're capable. You always have been. No noise followed. Just a stillness so complete it felt like stepping out of a storm into a quiet hallway. Around 2 in the morning, one final message appeared. From Mom. If you do this, you're dead to me. I stared at the line for a long time. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. I'm sorry you feel that way, I wrote. And I placed my phone face down. In the darkness of my apartment, for the first time in years, I felt something that scared me more than their anger. Relief. By morning, the group chat was silent. An unnatural, echoing quiet after days of noise. I made coffee. Sat at my small kitchen table. And for the first time in years, didn't brace for a crisis. Instead, I opened my laptop and finished what I'd started. I changed passwords. Removed my card from shared services. Ended every payment tied to their names. Each confirmation felt like cutting a thread that had been wrapped too tightly around my ribs. The phone company asked if I was sure I wanted to remove the other lines from my account. Yes, I said. The streaming services I'd been paying for, cancelled. The insurance policy I'd somehow ended up covering, transferred back to them with a 30-day notice. Later that week, I sat across from Dr. Foster and told her I felt both lighter and terrified. She smiled gently. Peace can feel dangerous when you've lived in chaos. Your nervous system is adjusting to not being in constant crisis mode. That made sense. I'd spent so long waiting for the next emergency, the next demand, that calm felt foreign. Like I was forgetting something important, even though I knew I wasn't. Give yourself time, she said. You're learning how to exist without waiting for the other shoe to drop. Jasper came over that night carrying takeout and a quiet understanding. He didn't offer advice. He just sat beside me on the couch, knees touching mine, grounding me. I'm proud of you, he said. And for once, I believed it. In the weeks that followed, my life didn't get louder. It got clearer. I walked without checking my phone. I cooked dinner without waiting for someone to need something. And slowly, the quiet stopped feeling like abandonment and started feeling like freedom. I learned that love without respect isn't love. And boundaries aren't cruelty, they're survival. The funny thing about cutting off people who only valued you for what you could give them. You don't lose family. You gain yourself back. My parents never reached out again. Savannah eventually stopped messaging. The extended family moved on to other drama. And Uncle Wade, he still calls every few weeks. Just to check in. Never to ask for anything. Some people think what I did was harsh. That I should have given them another chance. But here's what I know now. I'd given them 1,000 chances. Every time I said yes when I wanted to say no. Every time I put their needs before my own. Every time I swallowed my hurt to keep the peace. They didn't want a daughter or a sister. They wanted an ATM with a heartbeat. And I finally stopped pretending that was the same thing as love. 3 months after I cut them off, I got a small promotion at work. Nothing huge, just a step up with a modest raise. But it was mine. My accomplishment. And I didn't have to immediately calculate how much of it would disappear into someone else's emergency. I bought myself new sheets. Took Jasper out to a restaurant we'd been eyeing for months. Put some money into savings, actual savings that would stay there. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like my money was my own. Like my life was my own. 6 months in, I ran into Aunt Linda at the grocery store. She saw me, hesitated, then walked over. Your mother misses you, she said. I didn't ask if my mother had said that herself. I knew she hadn't. She has my number, I said. If she wants to talk, she knows how to reach me. Linda looked uncomfortable. She's too proud. Then I guess she's made her choice. I didn't say it meanly. Just factually. And I walked away feeling nothing but peace. Thanks for listening, and if this story resonated with you, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about finding the courage to choose yourself when the people who should love you refuse to see your worth. Sometimes the family you need isn't the one you're born into. It's the one you choose, and the life you build when you finally stop carrying weight that was never yours to bear.